Cowabunga, dudes and dudettes! Welcome back to the Movie Couple channel. I'm Dustin.
I'm Wendy.
And this is our non-spoiler review for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. After years of being sheltered from the human world, the Turtle Brothers set out to win the hearts of New Yorkers and be accepted as normal teenagers. Their new friend, April O'Neil, helps them take on a mysterious crime syndicate, but they soon get in over their heads when an army of mutants is unleashed upon them. I highly doubt that there's anyone out there who has not at least heard of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because since the 80s there have been multiple TV shows, a live action TV show too, where there was a female Ninja Turtle.
Oh yeah.
There's like 7 TV shows, 7 movies, and just a ton of properties. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is one of those pop culture franchises that a lot of people know of. It's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and since they all kind of got introduced to it when they were a kid, unless you were introduced to it when the comic books came out,
yeah, in the 80s,
which was not meant for kids. You were introduced to this with Cowabunga Pizza, dude, and having this in your life, and it has been redone and remade and reshaped and reimagined so many times. It's kind of hard to keep track of it.
Yeah, so when they announced this one, I was like, ooh, interesting. Like, I feel like I'm never like, ooh, a new Turtles. Like, I know with some franchises I'm like, ugh, again, but I don't know. I genuinely get excited to see how they're going to tell the story, and how the dynamic of the Turtles are going to work, because that's kind of what we watch for, you know, the banter back and forth, and everything. So with this one, I think one of the most eye-catching thing that sets this film apart from one is animated, because I think all the other films have been
there was
live
one
action. There was one animated.
And I think it was computer it was all done computer animated. I think it was just titled TMNT, and it starred Patrick Stewart in it.
So then I guess this new animated feature film, the most eye-catching thing about it is the animation style. It's very similar to, at least it reminds me of, I don't want to say it's exactly similar, but it really does remind me of the Sony Spider-Verse movie, so the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. It's similar in the sense that they are using 3D animation combined with a bit of like 2D hand-drawn, specifically to the Turtles one. The Across the Spider-Verse one is like different in the sense that they use not just 3D and hand-drawn, but they also utilize other different types of like styles of cartoon, if you will.
Yeah.
Like comic and graphics and whatnot. So it's similar because it reminds me of it, but I wouldn't say it's exactly the same or replica of. So that was one of the things that I was really, really looking forward to this one. Another thing that I was really looking forward to was, I kind of spoke about this earlier, the dynamic between the 4 brothers, because so usually in the past, like series or films, they're usually played by adult actors.
Yeah.
But they're teenagers, which, like, I get it, you know, that's how the industry has worked for a very long time. But what's cool about casting these young voiceover talents or young actors is that they retain that youthful energy and that quick back and forth. It just made it feel a lot more genuine, and true to like the teenager in the title.
Yeah, very true. That was actually something that caught me pretty quickly in the trailers. I was sitting here going, oh, okay, these guys are definitely teenagers.
Yeah.
They're not like played by older actors. They're actually played by younger actors, and they had that vibe. And I was kind of curious on, they've never really done that before. They've always had them feel a lot more mature. I think there were some, maybe like 1 or 2 of the animated shows that kind of started off like that, but then threw them into very mature situations and very, they lost that innocent teenager banter and the way that you see kids just being big, goofy, over the top, you know, oh my gosh, kind of reactions that you're like, yeah, that's kind of how a 15-year-old would act.
Yeah, and like what's cool about this one is that, you know, things do get dicey for, you know, the Turtles. but it doesn't ever get so heavy that you are like all of a sudden crying over like a heartbreak or an emotional stuff. Like it there is an emotional tone to it, but not to the point where it's so heavy and it drags the entire energy down, which I found to be pretty refreshing. Like I don't mind a good, heartfelt moment that can bring tears to your eyes, but it's also refreshing that they didn't have to lean into that in order to tell that like more heartfelt part of it.
And that's something that this movie actually did pretty well. One is the comedy. It keeps on coming.
Oh my gosh.
Hit after hit after hit. There's a lot of times when you would miss a certain line or dialogue because you're still laughing at the previous joke. And also just how much energy is given to every single character.
Yes.
And the dynamic between the four brothers. If you can't get that right, the dynamic between Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello, and Raphael correct, you're going to be in trouble making the landing on your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie.
Yeah.
Because it's really the brothers that sells this movie. And it looked like this was going to be a fun, younger take on it. Yeah. However, it also got very chaotic. To where if you had 15-year-olds kind of improving a scene, you would have some pretty funny moments, but then you're like, wait, how did we get from here to there to that? Where are we now? Where is this going? There are some very chaotic moments.
And I also want to talk about our antagonist in the film. You already saw in the trailer. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and check that out because we do refer to the trailer, so if you consider that spoiler, you might want to check out now. But, we have the Superfly in this movie. And I think in past iterations, it's always been Baxter Stockman who becomes but he never calls himself Superfly. So this is like the first time I want to say in like all of the Ninja Turtle stuff that they're kind of separate entities, and then having the name Superfly. Ice Cube voices Superfly, which like it brings the character it just brings him so much swag. He's pretty badass in it, and it's also the type of villain that you don't want to cross. Like talk about a crime boss. Yeah. Sort of like I'm not saying he is a crime boss, but he kind of embraces the vibe of one where you're just kind of like, okay, I'm sorry, did I say the wrong thing? Am I laughing with you, or am I don't know what to do? It's very intimidating, and I think setting him up against the Turtles is a really good dynamic because these are like four young, like woohoo, and here comes this larger than life villain that it kind of reins in the Turtles a little bit. I also want to mention Splinter because he is voiced by Jackie Chan. And it's just Jackie, who's been in Hollywood forever, I think is really, really great with his comedy, with the timing and everything. But one of the things that they did best, it wasn't just the writing, but it was the animation of a lot of the action scenes that Splinter is in. It is very, I'll just leave it at that. It is very Jackie Chan. So when you go and see it, you will know exactly what we're talking about. And I really, really appreciate the animators adding, putting that touch in the film for Splinter.
Yeah, and I liked also a lot of the fight scenes that they had in this. They were very high energy, very fun. Also the music that they chose is very just upbeat, and you're kind of like, yeah, kind of rocking out with it while the fight scene is going on.
There's a really fantastic montage, and it's paired with a very well-known hip-hop song, and I know because I was watching everybody's heads as I was doing this too, and I was like, okay, so we're on the same page. It's really great. I enjoyed the dynamic between April O'Neil and the Turtles. I think she helps bring close that gap between like the world of the mutants and the human world, which I know she technically has done in the past too. Yeah. But there was something more special about this. I feel like, I don't know, in the past, like it felt like April was too old or something, with the exception of the Nickelodeon animated one.
Yeah, technically I think they're all Nickelodeon, but I think it was 2014 or 2012 that came out, and that one I thought that's my favorite one out of all of this TV shows that I've seen of the Ninja Turtles, except for when I was a really little kid and I just like, Ninja Turtles. But I have to admit, there was a point to where things really started to kind of go off the rails to where it really kind of got lost, because there was a lot of different adaptations of the Ninja Turtles, but this one felt kind of shallow. I feel like they took a lot of the characters that we knew and love and kind of was like trimmed it up a little too much.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Kind of edited the story to where it's like easily digestible, easily explainable. Now we're moving on forward and getting into other parts of the movie. And some of the choices that they made with some of our most beloved characters like Bebop and Rocksteady and all of the different mutations and even some of the human characters, I felt like they were like, okay, and they're here too. They were all part of that thing that we talked about. Now we're moving on. You're like, wait, no. They're supposed to be. They changed a lot on their origin stories.
Yeah, I would say for somebody who maybe really like a younger audience, which I think the movie is targeting, not like so young where they don't understand. I think like maybe like ages, I think the perfect age for this film is like 8 or 9, maybe 9 to like 15.
Yeah.
I think that's like kind
it's
of
very
the target demographic. You know, they really kind of lean into kind of that like TikTok, current social media trend sort of a thing, which is not really a bad thing because I get it, and it makes it, you know, super energetic and super fast paced. So for new audiences who have no idea or are very new to Turtles, like they won't really notice the difference too much because they're learning as it goes. But for those of you who have grown up with Turtles, you saw the like that classic cartoon, that series that everybody has seen and keeps talking about, and some of the older live action movies, you are going to notice some alteration to certain characters, like their origin and their backstory. I don't want to get into it because I feel like
I don't want to get too
it's
much
too
into
spoilery, but they changed it where you're thinking to yourself, interesting that they made this choice, because if they just decide to do a follow-up to this film, how is this dynamic going to work? And lo and behold, Paramount actually announced and confirmed that there will be a follow-up to Mutant Mayhem, as well as a series that's going to be in the works. So we'll see how they, I guess, move forward with the choices that they made for certain characters in this movie, and then how they explore that in the follow-up.
And I have to admit, the story writing, the story structure, and the dialogue is very much geared towards kids. However, there's a lot of pop culture references, character development that's geared towards more adults. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little curious on if, when they do a series, when they do a second one, how are they going to be able to meld these together and get them to kind of work together? Or are they going to pick more, okay, let's focus solely on the young audience, or are we going to try to pull in the older fans that have grown up with this their entire life?
Regardless, this film, I found it was really entertaining. I laughed a lot throughout the entire film. I did feel like in the third act, some of that energy for me fell off a little bit, which is interesting because it was kind of that climax, like boss battle sort of a third act. So it was interesting where I felt that I was starting to find a lot of, plot holes, a lot of very convenient things happening, even though it was still enjoyable and a spectacle to see on the screen. So with that said, if there's anything else you want to add, if not, then let's go to your rating.
Overall, I'm a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan. I grew up with it when I was a kid, so it's always near and dear to my heart, and I've seen many iterations of it. I feel like the changes that they made to the characters and their history and their development were not some of my favorite choices that I've seen in the past, but also not some of the worst. Overall, I felt like this got a little, even though there was a lot of fun dialogue and fun moments with the Turtles, I feel like a lot of times it got very chaotic, very moments of convenience in the storytelling process. So I feel like you don't really need to go see this in the theater. You can probably sit down at home, so I'm going to say stream it.
I think for me, the animation is kind of what kept me energized throughout the whole thing. Like, I appreciate something looking a little bit different than your standard animation, which, like, no shade against any of that, because I enjoy those type of movies as well, but it's always refreshing to see that, as well as the new take on the Turtles. I really like that they used, these younger actors to voice the Turtles, because it really kept it, very energetic, very teenager, and it just felt authentic in that way. I kind of wanted a little bit more from like the band of mutants that the Turtles went up against. I felt like, kind of using Dustin's word, it felt a little bit shallow. And I think I only feel that way because I've watched, past Turtle movies and Turtle series, so I kind of know the personalities and the backstory of these characters, and then kind of seeing what they do with it, I was like, oh, this is so surface level. Like, you kind of stripped away of what has been so interesting about them, and like, just by adding like an iconic catchphrase here and there, it doesn't equate to like, the perfect representation. But now knowing that they have plans to make a follow-up, obviously Paramount believes in this movie and this property, and I'm not saying it's not fun. It's so much fun. Like, if you go and see this, I think you're gonna have a grand old time, whether you're an old Turtle fan or a new Turtle fan. So with that said, my rating for this movie is matinee. And there you have it, you guys. That is our non-spoiler thoughts on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. That's a mouthful to say. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts on the movie by commenting in the comment section below.
And who's your favorite turtle?
Yeah!
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.